Welcome to the Sustainable Region.
In this episode, I'll be touring the Vancouver Art Gallery's Massive Change exhibit and speaking with the GVRD CAO, Jonny Carline, as we look at how our actions here in Greater Vancouver connect with a worldwide movement toward a more sustainable way of life. We're at Massive Change because it poses a very important question. Now that we can't do anything, what will we do? Bruce Mao, the curator of the show, is one of Canada and the world's leading designers, and we'll be hearing his voice throughout this episode.
If you want to move to truly sustainable practice, you have to get rid of the idea of the exterior. You have to get rid of the idea that there is an inside and an outside to our ecology or to our economy. There is no outside. In fact, all the terrain has to be managed and designed. We should manage our presence in all aspects of our environment.
Joining us now is the Greater Vancouver Regional District CAO, Jonny Carline, and we're at the Wealth and Politics Room at the Massive Change exhibit at the Vancouver Art Gallery. Wow, there's a lot of talk of the phenomena of urbanization around the globe. What are some of these trends and how do they relate to our region?
Urbanization is really the trend. It's been called an urban tsunami. More and more people are living in cities. The future of the world is really going to be determined by how we manage cities, and Vancouver's right at the center of that whole discussion about how we move into a globally sustainable future.
How would you describe the design that's shaping our region?
Well, it's probably one of the leading examples in the world of the way thinking changed towards the end of the 20th century. After the Industrial Revolution and the emphasis on being a healthy city, really centrifugal forces governed the design of a city. People want to get away from different kinds of uses, get away from industry, get away from commerce. And so you had the sort of suburban dream of the Dick Van Dyke show out in New Rochelle with single families in great open spaces driving to work every day. And then around in the 1970s, we started to realize that really wasn't a livable model. Jane Jacobs started to write her wonderful books about how really you had to start reintegrating, reconcentrating, stop sprawling, stop the kind of demand for expressways that were ruining our cities. And that design emerged into the livable region concept in about the 1970s and became the livable region strategic plan in the 1990s.
What is the governance structure that has determined this design?
It's now unique in Canada amongst large cities. We are the last, what is called a two-tier government for a metropolitan region anywhere in Canada. Essentially, the way we approach this is that the region makes the large strategic decisions, but the local municipalities implement these within their own boundaries in a way that's sensitive to local communities. So the region is actually made up of representatives of all these smaller communities. It's a federation rather than a senior level of government. It leads to noisy, exciting debates, lots of different points of view, but it makes sure that the regional decisions are really sensitive to the unique nature of each community in our region. And that's what made us special, and that's what's made us a world leader. The one thing I found out when we were looking for new things to revitalize our programs, and when I went around and talked to different kinds of communities from rural Langley to downtown Vancouver, the one thing that united them was this real love of this place and the real desire that they would hand it down to next generations in at least as good a shape as it is now. They weren't prepared to see it sort of decline and deteriorate the way many other cities have done.
When the Greater Vancouver Regional District was formed, the urban structure and accommodating another million people was seen as something that the municipalities should get together as a partnership and figure out how best to accommodate the growth.
Certainly the whole town centre concept has been very well planned in Coquitlam and a plan of long standing, certainly since the 70s and 80s. That plan put in a framework of public services, how the roadways would be laid out, how the sidewalks would relate to those roadways, and provide a setting for various development sites, identified where the land use concentrations for the retailing would be, for employment, for housing. And with all that energy, the residential development market responded wonderfully over the last 10 years.
The city has played a major role in ensuring that Metrotown has appropriate amenities and services. On a number of occasions, the city has actually gone out, purchased property, and in turn made it available for a larger assembly by a private developer.
There's a certain natural evolution to a centre, but to actually make it function in a way that really does create a vibrant urban place takes a lot of planning. For example, some of the centres would only be a major regional shopping mall unless the plan was put in place to make sure that there was housing around it, make sure there was offices, make sure there was good transit.
What we hope to achieve with the Urban Transportation Showcase is to identify opportunities for making it easier for people to get to the city centre, to not drive but walk and come and take transit. Opportunities for urban improvements, street furniture, landscaping.
Status quo development is sort of your typical suburb and with houses separated from shops and from workplaces. But more and more now, there are more mixed-use developments being built, and they're very popular. People understand that it's way better to be able to walk to get a liter of milk than have to get in their car to get every little thing they need. So in order for our region to grow sustainably, all municipalities have to buy in to a long-range growth management plan and stick to it.
The classical limitation of infrastructure has been the boundary of movement. What we're seeing now is that a lot of work in movement is actually going beyond infrastructure. So it's finding ways to move without the infrastructural aspect of it being present all the time. Essentially, we're going to sustainable mobility because there's no other place to go, and any other option it's simply not plausible.
Welcome back. We're joined with the GVRD CAO, Jonny Carline, talking about what Bruce Mao calls movement economies. Yeah. So who's in charge of our roads and buses, and how's the public involved?
It's a very complicated situation. The federal government is in charge of our airport and ports. Our provincial government is in charge of our freeways. Our local municipal governments are in charge of our local roads. But at the hub of it all are the regional authorities. The Greater Vancouver Regional District is in charge of producing the overall strategy for the region, and the transportation component of that is the responsibility of the Greater Vancouver Transportation Authority, better known as TransLink. Now, the public is involved in two ways. First of all, it's involved every day. It makes decisions, choices on how to go about its business every day, and that's really the critical driver of what happens in our region on transportation. But it also has an input into all the decisions we make through very extensive public consultation processes that both the GVRD and the GVTA undertake every time we have a major plan review or make a major decision.
There's a lot of confusion, if not suspicion, about the structure of TransLink and its subsidiaries and accountability. Why is it structured this way?
It really was intended that the TransLink authority itself would focus on policy and financing and deciding what kind of transportation the region wanted, and the actual delivery of those services would be provided by separate companies who could focus exclusively on service delivery and possibly introduce some competition between different service delivery agents. So that's really the way it was structured and why it was structured that way.
What are some of the major challenges facing the board?
People have very high expectations of our transportation system. They expect to be able to get around the region quickly and easily and cheaply. So when they encounter congestion, they don't like it. Now, the board's difficulty is, and everybody knows this, you cannot build your way out of congestion. You have to make some different choices in terms of structuring the travel patterns in the region. So people themselves have got the answer in their own hands. Where they choose to live, where they choose to work, how they choose to get to work on a daily basis, really is the cause of either congestion or an efficient transportation system. And it's very difficult to get people to make those choices.
What is the global context we need to consider when we think about our movement economy?
Well, that question really goes to the heart of sustainability. On the one hand, we're competing in a global economy, and that's nowhere more evident than in transportation. The pressures on goods movement to be more and more efficient is enormous, and we simply have to respond that if we're going to have a prosperous economy. On the other hand, transportation is a major source of climate change emissions, local pollution emissions, as well as really being a social problem in the amount of time people have to spend away from their work and away from their families in commuting. And so we've got to find a solution to our transportation system that at the same time is environmentally and socially responsible, but still allows us to compete in the global world economy.
Most residents in each municipality who are commuting to and from work travel outside their own municipality in order to get to and from work. So any improvement within the region, no matter where it is, can be a benefit to any one of us.
Containerization has changed the way that the ports do business and the way goods are moved around the world.
We're in a just-in-time economy, and we have to meet those goals. The vessel does not make money when it's sitting at berth. It makes money when it's on the ocean.
We had to find technology that would work for us to allow us to be competitive. We haul 3 to 6 containers with one tractor rather than one at a time, which is the more standard way of operation. Hauling one container at a time to a rail yard that's located over a kilometer away is not very cost effective and would not allow us to offer competitive rates to our customers.
It's not unusual that the rail discharge off the vessel is actually loaded on rail cars prior to the vessel actually leaving the berth. That's fairly typical.
The transportation chain has become the warehouse. There is no need to build a large warehouse and put 500 tons of product in it, as long as you know that 500 tons is on the transportation chain somewhere. And that's why it's so important that the delivery is as smooth and as efficient as possible.
Intelligent transportation systems, it's the application of technology to improve traffic flow. If we had to deal with traffic congestion, traditionally we would build more capacity, and nowadays, just from the environmental and fiscal perspective, that's just not possible.
With the computer technology on board this bus and the global positioning satellites up above, the operator is always aware of his position, and so is the bus company. The operator logs on to begin with at the beginning of his shift. He downloads the information about his schedule, and from then on, the computer tells the operator whether he's on time or whether he's falling behind. If the bus falls behind its schedule, that's when TSP takes over, or Transit Signal Priority. And what happens is the bus automatically sends an infrared signal from the transponder on the side of the bus here to the traffic signal light, and the traffic signal light in turn provides an extended green or a truncated red in the opposite direction, which allows the bus to get through and maintain its schedule or catch up if it's running behind schedule.
Compared to the cost of typical road construction, it's generally about a quarter of the cost. If we're able to operate roads and highways and transit more efficiently and really eke out the last 10–15% of capacity that we normally couldn't get because of inefficiency in the system.
All we're really doing is pushing the resolution to a higher order of complexity and integrating more inputs and outputs. In the past, we used to think, well, the object is the design problem. Now we understand, well, actually, the flow of material is the design problem. And how that matter circulates in the world, the use value that it contributes, and then how we recover it, how we get the material back out of it and into another shape that's more intelligent.
Building, renovating, and operating buildings consume more of the Earth's resources than any other human activity.
Recently, the city unveiled its new asphalt plant, located on the Fraser River at the end of Fraser Street.
The plant's able to use about 20% recycled product into its batches, therefore saving the city substantial dollars.
The materials testing laboratory is where the city looks after quality control of streets construction. It's another area where recycling has played an important role.
Well, in detail here you see the trusses. These are about 60-year-old wooden trusses that came out of the other warehouse on site. It contains the highest level of recycled content of any building that we're aware of in North America.
In the region, we generate about 2.9 million tons of solid waste every year, and it's all got to go somewhere.
Here we burn 250,000 tons a year of municipal solid waste for the GVRD. This is a waste-to-energy facility. Our primary purpose is to burn garbage. In doing that, we produce energy. That energy is converted into steam, which we can sell to industry.
At the bottom of the incinerator, the leftover metal and ash drops out. Magnets pull out the metal, the ash ends up in roads, and the metal is recycled to make rebar.
Behind me what you see is actually the demolished reservoir, and you can see those machinery. What they are doing is separating the concrete and the rebar so that each of those can be recycled. What we were looking right from the beginning was to address the project in the light of regional sustainability. By replacing cement with the fly ash, we were able to eliminate close to 2,800 tons of carbon dioxide emission. Fly ash is a byproduct from thermal power plants. So that is a waste material, and if we can use that material into this concrete, we get a proper replacement. At the same time, the concrete qualities also will be improving.
Essentially, we want to provide an economic waste disposal system for the City of Vancouver and the other municipalities. And at the same time, we want to protect the environment and we want to encourage waste reduction.
The single most important thing that people can do to reduce waste is take part in the recycling programs that the GVRD and the City of Vancouver are now implementing. We need all the households in Vancouver to take part in the Blue Box program, and by eliminating those types of material coming into our landfill, not only helps reduce waste, but it also keeps harmful material out of our landfills, and which lead to a much cleaner environment for all of us.
Rather than a kind of centralized production with a vector distribution to receivers, consumers, make the consumer a producer so that you have a kind of give and take relationship with the grid. It changes the kind of fundamental idea of it from a centralized distribution to a network model where each node on the network is not only a consumer but also a producer. And as it happens, the kind of dynamics and the politics of energy change quite radically.
Welcome back to the Massive Change exhibit at the Vancouver Art Gallery. We're talking with GVRD CAO Jonny Carline today. Now, how does our energy consumption here in the Lower Mainland compare to the rest of the world?
Well, it's not a good example, I'm afraid. In North America, we consume about 5 times as much energy per capita as the rest of the world. The United States, with only 5% of the world's population, takes up 25% of the energy, and we're really pretty much in line with the United States in the way we consume energy, I'm afraid.
Why is energy consumption such a big issue for the entire world?
Energy really is the cross-cutting issue. The way we consume energy affects climate change, the way we consume energy affects air pollution, the way we consume energy really determines the kind of production processes and the way we're using up materials, as well as the fact that certain non-renewable energy sources are simply running out.
What are some of the consequences on a local level of our energy consumption?
Probably the biggest one, and you use the word C, and we can use it absolutely literally. If you look at the air quality, look up the valley, a lot of that sort of visibility issue, when you can't see Mount Baker, you can't see the mountains, a lot of that comes from the way we're consuming energy and the resulting air pollutants that are going into the atmosphere.
How is the GVRD working to affect change in this area?
Well, the first thing we're doing is trying to set an example ourselves. We're looking for every opportunity within our projects, particularly our major capital works, to seek less energy intensive solutions, seek ways to generate energy wherever we can, such as in the waste to energy facility in Burnaby and the major waterworks on the North Shore. But we're also working with industry out in the community, working with them to examine their processes, advise on opportunities there, along with BC Hydro, so that companies out there can look for wise energy choices. One of the leaders at a small scale is a courier firm out in Richmond that is using hybrid cars now for all its services, and that's a major step forward to be able to do that, and they're justly proud of themselves for that kind of example.
And what kind of things can individuals do?
They can examine their lifestyles, examine their behaviors, and try and identify those behaviors that simply use energy when you can avoid it. Driving your big 6-cylinder car 200 yards down the road to pick up a loaf of bread when you could have a nice healthy walk, maybe save on those fees that you go to the exercise class and instead use your exercise to actually go to the shops instead of using your car. That's obviously the most obvious one. But also look at your shopping patterns, look at what you buy, try and look for those things that are produced in an energy efficient way. And the more we can educate each other about what those opportunities are, then the better off we'll all be.
Corporations and governments too are all having to improve environmental performance. As the business case is made for the benefits of improved environmental performance leading to bottom line improvements in terms of saving money, improving market share, then why wouldn't businesses and other organizations want to go down that path?
There's a lot of work going on under the Sustainable Region Initiative, which is the GVRD's umbrella program for all the initiatives that are driving towards climate change. There's research programs that are looking at substituting biodiesel for a regular form of diesel and cutting emissions that way. We were looking for projects where you could get a significant reduction in greenhouse gas emissions from municipal facilities. And often the recreational facilities, and particularly pools, are a big heat user.
We took the moisture in the air, pulled it out of the air, took all of that heat and put it back in the pool. The total retrofit is reducing the energy consumption of this facility by as much as 30%.
This is an extremely efficient way to heat spaces and create hot water.
People tend to associate electrical energy with clean energy in the Lower Mainland, and it is when it comes from the hydro dams. But the energy that hydro has to import to meet their peak load conditions during the winter time is actually purchased somewhere else in the grid. And pretty well all the energy that they have to purchase now is generated by some sort of fossil fuel. In total, we're recapturing 95–96% of the energy that we're actually burning.
turbo generator will be producing 15 megawatts with no environmental impact. That will allow things like Burrard Thermal to be backed down by 15 megawatts.
In the past, industry has been a large player in greenhouse gas emission productions, but now motor vehicles have superseded industry.
We're really encouraged by companies like Novex Couriers, who's investing in hybrids, which reduce climate change emissions by 50% every time a hybrid is used rather than a regular car. There's ways to make the urban system more of a closed loop system, where we just recapture and reuse our energy that we already have in the system rather than just dissipating it to the atmosphere.
One of the key themes of massive change is the idea of abundance. We live in an age of abundant wealth, knowledge, and passion. It is this abundance Bruce Mao feels holds the key to a sustainable future.
In the exhibition, we quote John Cage saying that often, when faced with complexity, the response is paralysis. His advice: begin anywhere. It's such a great kind of idea that you simply start, and don't worry that you're not in the right place or working with the right people or have all the solutions. Just do something, and if we all are doing that, think about what the effect of that is in the world.
Visit the Massive Change website at www.massivechange.com for more information on this exhibit. And be sure to visit www.gvrd.bc.ca for information on GVRD initiatives dealing with these important issues. We would like to hear your comments on this show. Call us at 604-436-6794 or email us at sustainableregion@gvrd.bc.ca. I'm Kaljit Kayla, and I'll see you next time.